She drove home from school for a change of clothes and a snack. In a small Colorado town where everyone knows the nearest neighbors by name, a teenager walked into a house she thought was empty and never left. This is the story of Maggie Long, a high school performer, a daughter, a life cut short, and a case that still haunts the community. Tonight, we follow the timeline, the evidence, and the unanswered questions, and we ask, who broke into her home, and why did it end in deadly violence and arson? Welcome to the Friday Night Campfire Stories. My name is Rob, and you are watching my series, Far From Fiction. This is a series where we dive into some of the most terrifying stories that sound like they were made for film or TV, but they happen to people just like you and me. If you're new here and a fan of true crime, horror stories, or dark tales, then please consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 2,500 subscribers by the end of the year and need your help to get there. Also, my new book, The Hollow Season, is out now on Amazon. The link is in the description. It's a horror anthology series, and I'm so proud of it and think that you truly will enjoy it. It's a must-read for all horror fans. But now let's get into the disturbing case of Maggie Long. We'll look into the investigation, the theories, the unanswered questions that still plague this town. Maggie Long was 17 years old. She grew up near Bailey, Colorado, and by all accounts, she loved the stage. She was active in school theater, creative, and described by her family as warm and full of plans. On December 1st, 2017, she left Platte Canyon High School. Maggie drove home on County Road 43 to change clothes and grab a snack before a performance. The ordinary errand would become the last stop in her life. The Long house sat on the rural part of Park County, not a remote wilderness, but far enough from the busy streets that people assumed their property was private and safe. In rural communities, homes often contain tools, hunting gear, and yes, firearms. That detail becomes important in this case later on. Maggie arrived home from school to a house that she thought was quiet and empty, just like always. But investigators later confirmed a burglary, a theft of multiple firearms, and a large quantity of ammunition, and the removal of a safe and other possessions had taken place. The home was then set on fire, and Maggie's body was discovered in the burned-down house. Here's what investigators say happened based on official statements and reporting compressed into a timeline that you can follow. Between 3:30 and 4 o'clock on December 1st, 2017, Maggie attends school at Platte Canyon. She returned briefly home for a change of clothes and a snack before performance. Between 4 and 4:45, while Maggie is inside the home, unknown person or persons are also inside. Investigators believe she surprised them. Multiple sources say a physical struggle occurred inside the house between Maggie and the intruders. Around 7 p.m., 911 received a phone call from a neighbor who could see at least one person vandalizing the property. But they didn't alert them of seeing Maggie or any signs of a hostage situation. Police then arrived on the scene to see the house was already set ablaze. Inside, they found the lifeless body of Maggie Long. Because the crime included arson, homicide, and theft, multiple agencies joined the investigation. What they publicly released gives us a sense of what they believe to be true and where the gaps remain. The official report from crime scene and forensics determined that the fire was set intentionally after the struggle inside. Early investigative summaries stated that Maggie was killed during the burglary and was burned as arson occurred. Authorities released composite sketches and descriptions of multiple suspects and vehicles seen in the area around the time of the crime, as reported by the neighbors. Public appeals asked anyone who saw suspicious people or the vehicles to come forward. The list of stolen goods is unusual: a military-style rifle, handgun, and huge quantities of ammunition, a safe, and small valuables like jade figurines. That mix of items raises different possibilities about the thieves' intention. A multi-agency task force was then created. Years later, authorities offered a reward of $75,000 for information leading to the arrest. Despite leads and public appeals, no arrest has ever been announced. Those were the facts that have been made public. They have said that there was most likely 3 men who committed the crime with a possibility of a 4th. Where the record runs thin is the motive and the identity of the people that were inside that house on that December day. Now we're going to try to walk through some of the possible motives and why someone may have targeted this house. Investigators and community members have floated several talking points, and here are the key responsibilities tested against the public fact. There are a few theories, but they all stem from the fact that Maggie's death was not part of the robbers' plans, and they were not expecting her home at that time. But why were those men there in the first place? First, there was the known firearms and ammunition that made the home valuable to burglars. In rural communities, households often keep firearms for hunting, sport, or protection. Where firearms are known to be in the house, burglars may target the property specifically to steal weapons. Weapons that can be sold quickly on the black market or used in other crimes. The presence of the AK-style rifles and thousands of rounds of ammo would make the home a high-value target. Investigators have listed the items as stolen. However, we do not know whether the thieves knew that they were there beforehand or discovered them during the burglary. Then there's the discussion of whether this theft was opportunistic or premeditated. The theft of a large safe and small valuables like jade figurines suggests either twofold motives: quick sale items plus high value contents, or someone knew that the house had valuables inside. Stealing a safe and heavy items often suggests planning or at least a team. Investigators have said that they suspected multiple people were involved, at least 3 with the possibility of a 4th, which fits with a crew rather than a random opportunistic thief. Then there's the talk of whether they had local knowledge or they were strangers. When thieves steal specific items, certain firearms, family heirlooms, it can hint at insider knowledge. Someone knew where to look, or who had been inside the house before. There's also been a statement brought up by the FBI in later years after the crime had happened that stated that this all happened due to a hate crime. Being of Asian descent, they believe that this could have been one of the reasons that the Long family was targeted in the vandalism and theft of their property, and Maggie had the unfortunate end of being caught up in the crossfire. From a public record, the strongest hypothesis is that a burglar planned to steal firearms/valuables that escalated when Maggie surprised the suspects. The escalation, murder, and arson remains the most troubling unanswered part. Personally, I believe that the robbers had to have known who the family were, or had been casing the property for weeks prior before striking. If we'd known exactly when Maggie had died, that would help decipher one of the two. She was in that house for approximately 3 hours before the house was set ablaze. So she was killed on the earlier end of that. I think that would have been safe to say that it was the robbers who didn't know who she was, and they were just trying to get rid of any evidence or witnesses that would have known what they were doing or who they were. However, she wasn't killed until later on in the burglary. Then I think it'd be safe to say that it was somebody that possibly knew her and knew this was just a 17-year-old high school student who had her whole life ahead of her, but unfortunately in the end they decided that they could not keep her alive because there was no chance that they would have been able to get away with it. Now, if you're like me, you might be asking specifically, why were there so many weapons and ammo in that house? Well, here's what we can responsibly say about this. First of all, there's the practical reasons. In rural Colorado, firearms are commonly owned for hunting and property defense. Households with enthusiasts may store multiple firearms, handguns, rifles, and ammunition, legally and responsibly. It's possible the families were collectors, hunters, or generally kept a defensive and recreational collection. Then there's what the police reported about the weapons. Investigators publicly listed firearms and a very large quantity of ammunition along with the other stolen property. That fact is part of the reason why they are being pursued for burglary for guns angle. If the home is known or believed to contain high volumes of ammunition, it becomes a particularly tempting target for thieves who resell weapons or arms up for other crimes. And then there's the caveat of what we don't know. We do not have public documentation that explains exactly why the Long family had the specific inventory, whether items were recently purchased, collected over years, or kept for sporting use. For that, a public record request or a respectful conversation with the family, only if they consented, would be needed. Cold cases often break when someone remembers a small detail, a truck on the side of a county road, or a person carrying a safe, or a friend who suddenly came into money. In Maggie's case, useful leads would be anyone who saw an unfamiliar vehicle on or near County Road 43 on December 1st, 2017, or the weeks leading up to it if they were staking out the place, or anyone who knew where the family stored the firearms or safe, anyone who offered to buy multiple guns or large amounts of ammo in the months after the crime. If you have any of that information, the Maggie Long tip line is on the screen now. Authorities have offered a reward for information leading to an arrest. If you think you know something, even if it's so minor, contact the tip lines now. Maggie Long was 17. She had plans, friends, and a stage she loved. She shouldn't have been taken from us in a house fire born of violence and theft. The facts that have come to light turned to a robbery that turned deadly. But until someone comes forward with the missing pieces, the people who loved Maggie will keep asking the same question. Why her? And why like this? A candlelight memorial was held in Maggie's honor, and her mother states that a large part of the community still get together every year on her birthday to celebrate with her spirit. If this episode moved you, please consider sharing it, especially with people from Colorado or even the Park County area. A fresh set of eyes or an old memory might be what solves this case. These events took place almost 8 years ago, and for 8 years, these heinous and evil human beings have walked away from that fire in the life of Maggie Long free. It's time for justice to be served, and while they have tried to push the name Maggie Long out of their heads, it's time for her name to be the reason they spend the rest of their lives behind bars. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this case or if it moved you in any way, please consider hitting that subscribe button and hitting the like button. Every person that does that makes this campfire grow a little bit brighter. I release true crime videos every Wednesday and also release some sort of content, mostly in short form, every other day of the week. And don't forget, my new book, The Hollow Season, is out now on Amazon. It's the perfect read as we are officially in the fall months and heading into the spooky season. Do not miss out on your new favorite book. But that is going to do it for today. I hope that you all enjoyed. Don't forget to stay safe, stay vigilant, because you never know what is waiting for you on the other side of that door. As always, thank you for spending a little bit of your evening here with me.